Ta-da! Good morning guys and welcome to another book video. So this will be my first book video of 2025. My previous videos that you can see, I'll put them in the tags wherever they come up. They're both, all three of them actually, are vlogs from my recent trip to South Africa. There'll be like a little haul coming up for that as well. But first things first, a couple of days ago I went to the Lifeline Bookfest, which if you don't know what the Lifeline Bookfest is, it is like every book lover's dream. So it has so many different books and it's all from donations to Lifeline. So it's held at Brisbane Convention Centre, and basically it's all of the stock that Lifeline has that they couldn't get rid of book-wise, but also they have movies, they have comics, movie paraphernalia. So if you're interested in like Star Wars or Lord of the Rings, they had some like figurines and things like that, Pokemon cards as well in the comics section. But for myself, I went through their $2.50 section mainly for these ones here. And that's basically every book that's in that section is $2.50, which if you find some pretty decent books there. And then of course you have the high quality section, which is individually priced or $5, I think. And all of those topics in both sections range from like romance to novels to classic literature, hardbacks. You can get cookery, children's books, you can get biographies, you can pretty much get anything that you can dream of book-wise in there. If you're looking for specific books or books that are like harder to find, more vintagey books, I often, as you can probably see from this haul coming up, is I get most of my English course books. So, you know, your classic literatures, your Shakespeare's, that kind of thing. I usually find quite a few of them in this, and when they're $2.50 aside from the university $25 plus, it's a bit of a saving there. So if you're based in Brisbane, I do know that they hold this, I think, 2 to 3 times a year. But yeah, so basically I just wanted to show all of the different types of books that you can get here and the quality of the ones that you get. Of course it does vary because each book is individual and they each have very different owners, as you can tell by what I'm about to show you. So let's just get right on into the haul. So what I mainly wanted to get in this Lifeline Bookfest, in past ones I've changed my goals, but for this one I wanted to get mainly classic literature and literature books that were on my English course for uni. So you've got lots more classics in here than not. Other books I wanted to find were ones that I had seen and are on my TBR, but I don't have. So rather than buying them on my Kindle or buying them first copy, I usually check here first, and this is where I get most of my book buying done for the year, and this kind of like lasts me on until then. And the second book I bought in my little short story category was Kettle of Little Fish by Sylvia Seller, sorry. So this is 22 short stories. Again, the cover caught my eye and I was looking for short stories. It's again not a very large collection, but you've got quite a lot of stories in here for the size of it. From what I can gather from the blurb, it is basically a collection of stories with the main theme being how handicapped people are viewed in society as being inadequate, despite having so much to offer. The author, it says here, sees real success as personal outcome of our being in tune with what life has for us, a trusting of our inner sensibilities. This one, if anybody is interested, it's actually published in Queensland. The author is English, I believe. So you've got some illustrations in here as well, little sketches there, a couple more there, mainly floral themes. Kind of reminds me of Rupi Kaur, if anybody is interested in her writing, but wanting something that's a bit more short stories rather than poetry. I think this may suit that kind of taste. So this one was actually first published in 1991. That kind of gives you an idea of the age of books that you can get at the Lifeline Bookfest. And I haven't heard of this one at all either, but hopefully these short stories will give me some inspiration for my own writing, for my English course. I just feel that this one may be a very good book to come back to for different themes. So I thought this one would be quite interesting to look through at some point. I have two more books. These ones were from the kids section and they're part of a series I'm collecting, and that is the Princess Diaries collection. I actually bought the first book at the previous book fest, but couldn't find any of the other ones. These ones is the second book and then the fourth book. Unfortunately, I couldn't find the third one. These ones were in two different sides. So I think that somebody's donated them and they've been swapped around by many different Lifelines at some point. This one unfortunately has the name of a teacher at the top, so Mrs. Ritchie. Why did you write on the book? But anyway, I thought that, you know, if I find a better copy of this one at some point at a different Lifeline, a different book fest, or some charity shops, I'll just donate this one back in. It was only $2.50, so it's, you kind of get what you pay for. As you guys probably know, you've got the Princess Diaries, which became really big from the film with Anne Hathaway. So this is just the books that those movies were based on. And the last book for my short stories, novellas, and short novel collection was Before the Coffee Gets Cold, Tales from the Cafe. So I haven't actually read the first book of this. I understand that this one it may be the second, but I think I may just download it on my Kindle to be able to read that. And then this one, I just recognize the title and the cover artwork. It's quite distinctive, the work of this author and the look of their books. This one was in the $2.50 section, which is quite surprising because it's a relatively new book. It's only published in 2020, and the person previously paid $20 for it, so bit of a bargain there. It doesn't have any drawings by the previous author. Its spine is not cracked. It doesn't even look like it's been opened really, and it has that gold leafing, as you can probably see at the top. So I'm not entirely sure if this is a special edition or a first release, but yeah, so that one I'm quite impressed about, to be able to find this one. The next category that I wanted to have a look in was books about journalism, mainly uncovering different stories of journalists, particularly international journalism and war reporting, that kind of thing. So that's what I'm studying at university. I'm studying journalism, and I wanted to get some different reference points, some real life examples. So that's basically what I've gathered here. I have two main inclusions. This is Tom Wolfe, The New Journalism. So from what I can gather with this, it's basically just unpacking lots of different stories. It has that list of journalists at the back, and it just unpacks their experiences with the many different topics that they've uncovered. Those real life examples that I often need for my journalism class, this will come in real handy. And the second book in my journalism theme is The Sand Cafe by Neil McFarquhar. So this seems very interesting. So Neil McFarquhar, he's a correspondent and he's worked in the Arab world. Over 12 years he's been doing that. So he's been working for the New York Times, covering Islam in North America. So this particular novel is about Iraq. So on the blurb here it says that The Sand Cafe is a satire of modern war reporting that mercilessly exposes the life of the foreign correspondent. The ceaseless quest for a really big story, gathering frustration and brewing jealousy directed towards other reporters. Of course, with foreign correspondents, especially if you have freelancers in the mix as well, you've got lots and lots of competition between reporters, which can lead to lots of reckless behavior, particularly if that competition is in a war zone or between warring parties. I thought this one would be quite interesting. It's got that real life example that I was looking for, as well as having another journalist that I can add to my knowledge up here, because being a foreign correspondent is something that I'm very passionate about and I really want to make happen for myself. So I feel like having more and more information about the topic and about the future and the career that I want to have could only be a good thing. So that's The Sand Cafe there. Another section that I tried really hard to get into was the classic books for my English course at university, as I said before. So majority of these books are for that, as well as a couple more that are just of an interest topic for me. So we've got a classic, A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. I was going to save this one for Christmas time. Of course, it's not really a very happy book, I guess. I was traumatized by this film when I was younger, so hopefully having the book and using my own imagination will help remedy that. But let's all root for Scrooge. That's all I have to say. In the second book, I've got C.S. Forester, The Good Shepherd. So this one's a war novel. It's based in World War II. This one caught my eye because I do love World War history. I studied modern history in high school, and so I'm always looking for more perspectives on that. So this one's based in World War II, as I said. It is a fictional story though, I will put that out there. Basically unpacking the war at sea portion of World War II, which you don't hear a lot about. It says here that its characters are men who hope and fear, live and die in exactly the same way as countless thousands of sailors who served on ships just like the Good Shepherd. So C.S. Forester, the great master of sea stories, has created yet another classic. So it's quite short as well, which I do appreciate. Sometimes books that are more intelligent, I find trouble getting through. So I'm glad that this one is a bit of a shorter one for me, especially an introduction into such a heavy topic. It can be difficult to read a huge, big novel on it. It is a little bit beaten up, but you know, that's what you get. The next 3 books I got are all from the same author, and that is Jane Austen. So I got Northanger Abbey, Sense and Sensibility, and then also Emma. This has got Gwyneth Paltrow on the front, which I did not know that they made a Emma movie with Gwyneth Paltrow, but that's what this cover is of. So I was quite surprised to find Gwyneth Paltrow in the front. They're all classic books, so I haven't got much to say. You guys can find them pretty much everywhere. I do have a very big interest in classics, particularly classics that are feminist literature or literature written by women, because it's so interesting to see the different perspectives, the different ideologies that come with that time and being a woman. So obviously you've got a lot of those themes in these books, and so I'm very excited to get into these ones at some point. Speaking of feminist values in older times, I've also got Little Women. This is my second copy of Little Women. My other copy was given to me by my mum, and she had that whilst she was in school, so it's a bit of an older copy, but I wanted one that I can annotate and kind of have a bit more beaten up, and that's what this one is for me. So the text is a little bit larger than the other copy that I have. It's a bit more of an easier read, an easier way to read the novel, and it's got, you know, cracked spine. It's one that I can worry about less if I want to chuck it in my bag or read it on the go or something like that. If I lose it, it's not that big of a deal. You get me. Lots of people probably know the story of Little Women by now. You've got the Greta Gerwig movie that came out a couple of years ago. Obviously that film was based on this one. You've got Meg, Jo, Beth and Amy, and it basically just follows their life and their meetings with balls and trying to be young women and be desirable, and their thirst for love for some characters, but also thirst for success and respect as a woman. So it's got quite a lot of themes to unpack in here, but I've already read the book, but I wanted one that I can beat up, as I said before, and this cover is nice and pink and I thought it was very pretty. Next book I have is a Charles Dickens book, The Tale of Two Cities. So it's a Penguin popular classic, so I do collect these books. So I did not realize when I bought it that yeah, so somebody's used this as a school textbook from what I can gather. So this book unpacks 2 men and 2 different cities. So you've got Paris and London, I believe. And it's basically just showing how that man's worst excesses can also bring out the best in others. And the most classic line in this book, and one that you hear even if you haven't read the book really, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. So if you didn't know where that quote came from, it comes from The Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. Yeah. The next book I have is Watership Down by Richard Adams. I love this book. I read it when I was in primary school, or my mum read it to me really, but I like to say I read it. It's basically following the story of some little rabbits. It says in the blurb that once you start reading the book, you've entered the world of rabbits. So if you were wanting to get into the book, that's what you can expect. So it basically follows a group of rabbits as they leave their home and they go on this adventure, and how they're prey. There's lots of predators coming after them. They catch you, they kill you, but first they have to catch you. That's a very famous line from this book. But of course it is a children's book, so it's a bit of an easier classic to read, and they're just really cute because they're just little rabbits. Yes, that's Watership Down by Richard Adams. The next book I have is The Girl with the Pearl Earrings by Tracy Chevalier. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. So this one is inspired by this famous painting from what I can gather. It's a historical fiction. I'm not actually entirely sure what this book is about. I decided for this novel I wanted to go in blind when reading it, just because there's a lot to perceive from this artwork, and I'm very curious on how Tracy Chevalier has created a novel just based on one painting. So I'll let you guys know how this goes on Goodreads, or I might do like a reading diary at some point on here, but I'm very excited for this one. It seems very interesting. All I know about it is that it's a historical fiction based on the painting. That's all I know. The next book that I bought is for my English course, and that is Where Angels Fear to Tread by E.M. Forrester. I have read a couple of books from E.M. Forrester. So far wasn't my favorite, but of course this one is for my English course, so it was very nice to get it for $2.50. This book follows a woman called Lilia Heriton. She's been widowed, she's English and she's been widowed, and she's gone on holiday in Italy. She meets an Italian man. He's penniless, he is poor, he doesn't meet up to her social standing, and then she decides to marry him despite her deceased husband's family objecting heavily. So it basically just unpacks the British middle class. It's a melodrama, what I'm gathering from the back. It has complications, and it begins with a comedy of manners, which I'm not entirely sure what that means, but it's a lesson in love and tolerance. So that is Where Angels Fear to Tread by E.M. Forrester. The next book I bought is from one of my favorite authors. She's a modern classic, and that is Margaret Atwood, and this is The Blind Assassin. So I haven't really seen Margaret Atwood's work in the Bookfest before, so I was really excited to find this and pick this one up. I haven't heard of this book though. Obviously one of the best known works of Margaret Atwood is The Handmaid's Tale, and also the sequel to The Handmaid's Tale, which is The Testament. It was very well received, those two books. This book unpacks the main character Iris Chase and her constant thinking about her sister Laura's death. So Laura, I think, drove her car off a bridge, and it's basically just unpacking the bond between two sisters, epic tale of memory, intrigue, and betrayal. So obviously there's some kind of plot twist in here. I'm not entirely sure just yet. I haven't read it, obviously. But yes, so I'm quite interested. I love a good mystery, so that's what I'm kind of getting from this, with other themes as well from that. And I'll let you guys how it goes, but that's The Blind Assassin by Margaret Atwood. So I'm very excited about this next one for my classics. This is the last one that I bought for my little collection that I've got going now. This copy that I have is from 1985, and it is Jack London by Martin Eden. So I really like the Penguin Classics book. I think I mentioned before that I am collecting them, and this one is very similar to the collection that I have going on. It's just a little bit shorter in size, so I'm not entirely sure what that's about. But again, it is from 1985, so I'm very excited for this one, mainly because it just seems like it's going to get more and more valuable in age. And it's really not beaten up at all. It has got some sellotape on the front, and then this sticker from a secondhand bookshop from New South Wales, so it's traveled a bit of a way. And I thought what was really nice and precious about it is that it's got a little inscription here at the top, and it's dated the 1st of the 4th, 1987. So obviously it's been donated at some point, which is a little bit sad with the inscription in the inside, but I am quite excited about it anyhow. This one is set in San Francisco. It follows the story of Martin Eden. Set in San Francisco, this is a story of Martin Eden, an impoverished man who pursues obsessively and aggressively dreams of education and literary fame. London, dissatisfied with the rewards of his own success, intended Martin Eden as an attack on individualism and a criticism of ambition. Andrew Sinclair's wide-ranging introduction discusses the conflict between London's support of socialism and his powerful self-will. Sinclair also explores parallels and divergence between the life of Martin Eden and that of his creator, focusing on London's mental depressions and how they affected his depiction of Eden. So I'm very interested in this one, particularly in the introduction. I find that with classics, if they don't have that introduction or the bit at the end where it kind of describes the themes in the book and it helps you to analyze it properly, I have a bit of trouble reading it. So I'm very thankful that that is in the front there. Sometimes with older editions, they just left it out. So I'm not entirely sure why they sometimes leave it out in older editions, but I'm very thankful to have Andrew Sinclair unpack the book for me before I read it, because otherwise I'm just going to be sitting there reading words and not actually soaking anything in. And that is Jack London's Martin Eden. And then the last 4 books that I have for you today are just kind of a mismatch, ones that I picked up, ones that caught my eye, ones that I had been looking for. The first book that we have is Good Material by Dolly Alderton. So you're probably surprised that I was able to find this at a Lifeline Bookfest, as it is quite new. This is a book that has been on my to find list, mainly because I didn't really want to buy it firsthand, because it hasn't had very good reviews from some of my friends and some of my favorite YouTubers, where I trust their opinion greatly, and they didn't seem to like this book. I have read a couple of Dolly Alderton books as well as an audiobook by her, but all of the material that I have consumed by Dolly Alderton has been non-fiction and kind of works from her column and advice and things like that, though this one is a fictional book that she's written. It's a relationship between 2 characters, Jen and Andy. What I'm gathering from the blurb here is that they broke up and Andy has lost everything. He's lost his house, he's lost his relationship, he's kind of just like going through a lot of stuff right now. He hasn't really got a career at the moment, or he's waiting for the career to start, and he's wondering why everyone else around him is growing up and is seeming to be mature and seeming to get on with their life, and he's kind of in this stagnant place. But he decides that he's going to figure out what went wrong in their relationship, and hopefully if he can figure out what's going on in that, it'll kind of help everything else fall into place, and then Jen will come back and everything will be right with the world again. So what mainly attracted me about this one when I had been looking for it and it was on my TBR is that it's not the woman looking for the man and being distraught after the man left. It's the man being distraught after the woman leaves, which is quite a refreshing thing, because I feel like often with books about a breakup, it focuses on the woman main character, which is nice to have that perspective. I feel like you don't often have these types of books unpacking the male perspective, so I really do appreciate that, and I'm interested to see what happens in Good Material by Dolly Alderton. The next book I have is The Duff, or The Designated Ugly Fat Friend. So I recognize this book off of the film. I've seen the film, so there's not much surprises going on in here, but I do like to have the copies. I did not know that this one was a book previously. It follows 17-year-old Bianca Piper, and it's about her two girlfriends and how they're really good looking and she just knows that she's not very good looking. There's a small little inclusion of romance in there because her neighbor helps her to kind of get over this designated ugly fat friend thing that's going on. There's lots of like confusion, miscommunication between the two, and like she just never knew that she could break his heart kind of thing. But yeah, so it's a bit of a young adult read. I'm not entirely sure. I know in the film it didn't have any spicy scenes. I'm not sure about the book though, so take that with a grain of salt and maybe look that up before you dive into this book. Of course it is 17-year-olds, so I doubt there will be any spicy scenes, but you never know. So that is The Designated Ugly Fat Friend, or The Duff, and that is by Cody Keplinger. And the last book that I got at the Lifeline Bookfest is The Dressmaker by Rosalie Han. So if you're an Australian, you've probably seen the film of this with Kate Winslet and Liam Hemsworth. It is a historical fiction. It's about the main character Tilly Dunnage and her return to her small town. She needs to take care of her mother, who's going a bit insane. But what is quite interesting that you find out pretty much the first moments in the book is that the townspeople, that she's moved back to this small town and the townspeople drove her out previously. They don't like her, they don't respect her. Because of that rejection from the townspeople, she moved to Paris and became an expert dressmaker. So she earned her living making dresses and planning revenge because she was incorrectly accused of something that happened in the town. So you've got a couple of plot twists throughout the book, and it is an Australian story, which it's always nice to get into those kinds of things, especially if you are Australian. I feel like lots of Australian literature is known in Australia but not globally, whereas we Australians consume so much, particularly American content but also UK content, in books and films and TV series and everything. It's really nice to pick up some literature from an Australian. And yeah, that is The Dressmaker by Rosalie Han. Alright guys, I wanted to thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope you got some good recommendations and are thinking of heading to the Lifeline Bookfest the next time it comes around. You'll definitely find some books that you're looking for, I promise, and if you don't, you can tell me and I will sincerely apologize to you for that. This is the state of my bed right now, and so I want to say thank you so much for your support, and if you could subscribe down below, that would be really helpful. If you want to keep up to date with any of my other social media things, I'll have them listed down below. They're also in my YouTube profile if you wanted to have a look through that for any other videos that might catch your eye. I hope you guys are having a wonderful 2025. I hope your January has been good. I hope that everyone is looking forward to Valentine's Day and any other events that are happening close up for you guys. Let me know down below anything you're looking forward to, anything that you're wanting from me. Please let me know. I love feedback. I hope you have a lovely rest of your Sunday, and yeah,